People misunderstand me. Many people misunderstand me. I'm quite happy to be called a photographer. All of a sudden, the art world has caught up with photography, and they are trying to hijack us. There is no question that I was given a lot of interesting and unique opportunities growing up, but I think people often misunderstand that I work as hard and want things just as badly as anybody else. The scientific method actually correctly uses the most direct evidence as the most reliable, because that's the way you are least likely to get led astray into dead ends and to misunderstand your data. I think what people misunderstand is the level of vulnerability for professional athletes. Some mistakes might be made, and then you're going to be judged by those mistakes, and then that's piled onto the stress that person might have in their mind. It's not easy, right? I very seldom compose anything in my head which later finds its way into text, except character names sometimes. I'm often very much inspired by things that I misunderstand. A lot of people misunderstand what is strong style. Hard hits? Stiff? I don't think so. Strong style is a kind of philosophy. The Gara Charua is something we're proud of, even if other people sometimes misunderstand it. There's something that people misunderstand about screen quotas. It's not about rejecting or hating other countries' films, but about protecting our domestic film industry. As the growth mindset has become more popular and taken hold, we are beginning to find that there are pitfalls. Many educators misunderstand or misapply the concepts. A lot of times, people will have afterparties or try and host an event for comedians, and they misunderstand us. They think it should be wild and crazy, or loud music, and comedians are typically pretty mellow people that just want to talk to each other. Conservatives who defend libertinism as liberty misunderstand what our founding fathers meant. We all love freedom, but freedom has a higher purpose, as should conservatives. It is easy to misunderstand what a comedy song is, or what its potential is. I'm used to musical comedy being maligned as an easy art form. Sometimes we misinterpret, sometimes we misunderstand, sometimes we make mistakes. I don't want you to misunderstand me. You might get up and state what you believe to be Seventh-day Adventism, and I might not agree with everything you said. Vera Caspary wrote an essay called My Laura and Otto's where she talks about the arguments she had with Preminger. She felt that not only did he misunderstand the character but that he couldn't help but be misogynist. We should make the case for the things we love, even if we think that people will misunderstand them. That is why people defend the U.S. Constitution, even though so few really understand the subtle thinking embodied in that document. There's no way you can misunderstand the teachings of the Quran, there's no way you can misunderstand the teachings of the Bible, there's no way you can misunderstand the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, or of the Book of Mormon, or of the other sacred texts of many of those religions. Those who do not think religious organizations should have an opinion on climate change misunderstand the former and the moral dimension of the latter. It doesn't really bother me if people misunderstand me. It's cool, but you can't do anything about it. Facts are God's arguments. We should be careful never to misunderstand or pervert them. Sometime haters would say or misunderstand how lucky I am to doing what I'm doing, to be healthy and play my sport and passion. The problem with merely writing so that you can be understood is that the wrong people, in advancing their agendas, are only too ready to misunderstand you. Writing so that you cannot be misunderstood anticipates and preempts those who would willfully distort what you are trying to say. You can spin stories out of the ways people understand and misunderstand each other. Motherhood is priced of God, at price no man may dare to lessen or misunderstand. Content and technology are strange bedfellows. We are joined together. Sometimes we misunderstand each other, but isn't that after all the definition of marriage? Some Jews and Muslims accuse Christians of being idolatrous for believing in the Trinity. My response to both groups is that they fundamentally misunderstand the Christian understanding of the Trinity. If you are attempting to study American history, and you don't understand the force of white supremacy, you fundamentally misunderstand America. Don't misunderstand, he said, there's pressure with every football game. Sometimes players, coaches, teams put pressure on themselves when they don't have to. Some of the journalists who've ended up writing about our band, and this is disappointing to say, have a very narrow outlook, and because of that they fundamentally misunderstand us. Writing is exhilarating, but reading reviews is not. I've been really devastated by good reviews because they misunderstand the project of the book. It can be strangely galvanizing to get a bad one. Don't misunderstand good manners for passivity. Telling the truth to people who misunderstand you is generally promoting a falsehood, isn't it? Please don't misunderstand, I actually enjoyed the hecticness and the opportunity to cover women's college basketball. But the reality is, as a young broadcaster, the vast majority of my games came in men's college basketball, and my viewership as a fan came in men's college basketball because that was what was available to me. I tell folks when I walk into a room, when I leave, you may not like me, you may not agree with me, but by golly, you will not misunderstand where I am. I get things done. The last thing they want is a revitalized economy now. I'm not saying the Democrats don't want a strong economy. Don't misunderstand, they just don't want it now. Many years ago, I think I got my first insight on how an incredibly diverse team can work together and do astonishing things, and not just misunderstand each other and fight. Because bisexual people almost have a foot in the gay and the straight world, their friends can misunderstand them too. Like if a bisexual man starts dating another man, people are like, he's gay, but you know, bisexual people remain bisexual, and their attractions can change and flux over time. I mean, I think children love the idea that there are different viewpoints and different words for things and different worlds. And the more that they pretend to be other people, the harder it is for them to hate them and misunderstand them when they grow up. Watching her, I've seen the pros and cons of being in the industry, and how so many people can be so harsh, especially towards someone as talented as Miley. But I look up to her for being so strong, being able to take all of that hate and being able to deal with people who misunderstand who she is. If the only people we are able to extend empathy to are those who are like us, who come from the same country we do, or who share our faith, then we misunderstand what empathy is. People misunderstand what a police state is. It isn't a country where the police strut around in jackboots, it's a country where the police can do anything they like. Similarly, a security state is one in which the security establishment can do anything it likes. I'm not miserable, please don't misunderstand me. I have a lovely life. Sometimes we misunderstand what films can do. We just throw a whole book in there, with people just talking, and talking. The picture can tell, the frame can tell. Some say that I should settle down, go slower and not push so hard, so quickly for such transformational change. To them, I say that you misunderstand the size of the problems we face, the strength of the status quo and the urgency of the people's desire for change. I seldom read anything that is not of a factual nature because I want to invest my time wisely in the things that will improve my life. Don't misunderstand, there is nothing wrong with reading purely for the joy of it. Novels have their place, but biographies of famous men and women contain information that can change lives. If you see me as just the princess, then you misunderstand who I am and what I have been through. It is better to understand little than to misunderstand a lot. A lot of people misunderstand what it means to have good cardio. Good cardio is when you are able to push the fight, and I've shown that in all of my fights. I feel like every single time I've published a book, there's some little light in me that goes out. I've seen the way people can misunderstand or misinterpret things, if not maliciously, then without a lot of sensitivity. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.